Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new PettyRevenge stories, shall we? The first story is called You Can't Be In Here. This happened back in the 80s when women's rights were still a new thing in my country and a lot of the older generation of men were not at all in favor. It used to be a thing where certain pubs or rooms in a pub were men only, or maybe you'd bring the wife, but definitely not where young single females hung out. One day I was out shopping in the city center and, as they say, the heavens opened. It went from sunny to sheets of rain hurtling down. I was drenched and there seemed to be nowhere to shelter. There was a pub, but I didn't drink and I'd never been in one, though I was of legal age. A woman popped her head out of the door and gestured me inside, saying, "You can wait it out in here, love." She seemed kindly, so in I went. Immediately the bar fell silent. It was entirely filled with cap-wearing elderly men, and every one of them was staring at me with outright hostility. Still, the nice woman was behind the bar, and she gestured me over to a stool in the corner. "You can't be in here," a large red-faced man nearby said. "Women don't come in here." There was a general grumbling of agreement. "Don't mind them, love. I get to say who comes in and who doesn't," the nice woman said. "Now, would you like something to eat? You look freezing." I just nodded shyly. She settled me with a glass of coke and, a few minutes and much male harassment later, came out with a full dinner. Roast beef, potatoes, gravy, roast vegetables, dumplings, the works. It was amazing. Eventually the red-faced man had had enough. He strode over to the bar and settled in to yell at me from close quarters. Except the woman stopped him dead with a stare and said, "Don't you dare, this is my pub and I'm tired of you and your cronies running women out of here. Now go upstairs." He sputtered and got redder, but she folded her arms and off he trotted. Just as he was about to go through the door, she added triumphantly, "And you needn't expect any dinner tonight either." "What?" he said, truly horrified. "You didn't think that I cooked all that in 5 minutes, did you? That's your dinner she's eating." Turned out that she was the owner and he was her layabout husband. They lived upstairs. I passed by the bar a few months later and it was much different. Open, friendly, flowers outside, no old man. The next story is called Nobody is Going to Take You Serious with That. I used to have a manager back when I was 21 and he was an arrogant guy who loved belittling people. He used to enjoy making really inappropriate jokes. This was back in the late 90s. I worked in sales and it was just me and another guy. We built up this process where I'd send simple professional letters and follow up with a polite phone call. I wasn't the pushy sales type, so it worked well. We had a decent response from companies and I liked the autonomy of doing things my way. For some reason, they decided that we needed a sales manager and Kevin was hired. We butted heads right from the start. He'd constantly mention his MBA and how I didn't even have a degree. I once told him, "I may not have your education, but I know all the letters of the alphabet, not just MBA." He got mad and wanted me fired, but my director liked me, so we had to move past that. One day Kevin approaches me with a piece of paper looking rather pleased with himself. It's a new letter. He realized what I was sending out was substandard and he improved it. I was appalled whilst reading it. It was written in 6 different fonts, with some words larger in font and bold. It looked like a ransom note. We argued as I wasn't sending this out. "Yes, you are. Put your name on this abomination." "No, it's your name." "I refuse." "Well, I'm going to have to replace you." This wasn't going well. So 2 minutes later, this random guy is in our office. It's Kevin's friend. He's a director in his company and wanted to catch up with his friend who worked nearby. Kevin offered to make him a coffee and went off to make one. I don't know what possessed me, but I handed him the letter. My first thought was to say look at what Kevin did, but I decided against that. I lied. I said I wrote this as a new sales approach letter and would like to know what he thinks about it. Kevin's friend was from the same school as Kevin and wanted to belittle me. He waited till Kevin was back in the room. "You can't send this, it's totally unprofessional and manic. Nobody is going to take you seriously." I looked at Kevin. He did not make eye contact. That letter was never talked about. He even stopped being a twat for a few days. The third story is called Communication Expert. 20 years ago I had a job I loved until the department was taken over by a terrible woman, let's call her Cruella, who tortured me. I was young and naive and I thought the fact that I did such a good job filling in for her when she was frequently out sick would make me indispensable. She initially made me her right hand and promised me a promotion and a raise. But eventually it became clear that I was better at her job than she was, and everyone in the company was talking about it. One person memorialized her preference for my work over my boss's and a memo CC'd to department heads. So after a terrible series of disappointments and humiliations, she fired me. As much as senior staff liked me, I was a cog in a series of very big wheels, and many were snowed by Cruella. Or they were just on their own trip, and I was of little consequence. I wasn't the first of her victims, and I certainly wasn't the last, but she made it especially painful. She even had security escort me out, which shocked everyone. It had never been done before, and I was hardly a security concern. It was just plain cruel. My friends there told me people were talking about it for weeks. 5 years later, I had moved on, as had Cruella, after completely decimating the entire department at a place I had really loved working. She literally turned the staff over 5 times in 5 years before anyone got wise. After I heard she had left, my mom googled Cruella and found her at a prestigious position across the country. Then mom created a throwaway email account and proceeded to email everyone Crew worked with, bosses, colleagues and yes, HR, about her shenanigans at her previous job. It was a masterful, detailed account, complete with ammunition for combating her machinations. Now, no one can say why Cruella left her new job a few short months later, but it gave me and mom great pleasure when we saw her position was open. She soon after reappeared at a smaller institution in a completely different part of the country, and mom considered a repeat performance. But honestly, as much as she deserved being forced to move across the country yet again, she did have a bunch of kids and a long-suffering trailing spouse. We decided it wasn't fair to punish an entire family. Plus, writing all those detailed emails was kind of time-consuming. Revenge done well is sweet, but you can make it a full-time job. I always hoped the experience was humbling enough that she cleaned up her act and started treating people better, though I doubt it. I just googled her and saw that she was fired from her last high-profile job after a very short time. The company had taken a lot of heat for her outrageous salary and the 6-figure talent search that preceded her hire. I have to wonder if her interpersonal relationships had anything to do with it. It amazes me how manipulative, attractive people with little or no talent can steamroll over colleagues for an entire career and still enjoy some level of success. Looking at her resume over the last 2 decades, isn't the internet amazing? It appears she hasn't stayed anywhere more than a few years. And yet Crew was earning $250,000 a year at the last job she lost. Now she has her own company, but I couldn't look at the website because it had one of those dire "danger, certificate has expired" warnings. Ironic, since she builds herself as a communications expert. The next story is called Terrible Parking Job. So, a bit back, the spouse and I decided to hit up the local Chick-fil-A. We got there right around the lunch hour, so the place was pretty packed and there was very little in the way of parking spaces. As I take my first lap around the parking lot, I see what I thought was an opening and begin to make my approach to the spot. Of course, as soon as I got up to the spot, I saw that some clown had parked his pickup truck about halfway into the spot and halfway into the neighboring spot. Now, normally I would have just mumbled some profanity to myself and moved on for another spot. But I noticed that someone had seen this Yahoo's excellent parking job and had decided to get as close to his passenger side door as they could. I turned to my spouse, who knew exactly what I had planned with my little car. They helped out, allowing me to park up as close as I could with the space left to their driver's side door, albeit still within my lines. We giggled a bit and went in to order our food. When we went to get a seat, we made sure to sit within view of the waywardly parked truck and kept watch while eating some delicious chicken sandwiches. A few minutes later, the hapless fella came rattling his large self out to his truck, only to find that he was essentially boxed in by myself and the other vehicle. We watched as he tried in vain to open both the side doors, which even a thin person would not fit by, especially not his rotund self. Finally, he enacted his final act of desperation to get back into his truck. He crawled his oversized self through the back window. We watched as this man struggled to squeeze in through the bed of his truck. At that moment, as if by some steering of fate, I made eye contact with another gentleman watching the same scene. He was giggling to himself, and at that moment I knew he was the driver of the other car on the other side. With a big smile on his face, he raised his styrofoam cup of sugar water in my direction. And I raised my overly sweetened tea in his, all in celebration of victory over terrible parking jobs. The last story is called, Is it cruel or is it funny to do that? This happened probably a good 8 years ago on Halloween. I went to a house party with some friends of mine, hosted by some people I did not know. Pretty much everyone there was cool, except for the guy who lived there. If I had to compare his demeanor to anything, it was that of an 80s high school movie villain. It was casually enough I asked about his costume. He was a dog, I think, and for whatever reason he got very offended when I said my mom had a dog. What followed next was a series of events I still laugh about to this day, due to my pettiness. The first thing that happened was the line to the bathroom. This was an old row home with 2 bathrooms, one of the main level and one in the basement. The line to the main level bathroom was lengthy, so I decided to see about the basement. Here I run into this douche and he yells at me that I am not allowed to use this bathroom. Cool, it's your house, no biggie. As I leave, I hear that bathroom door open and someone exits it. Whatever, I keep it pushing. A little while later, nature calls again. This time I make my way to the main floor bathroom, where I have my second run-in with this dude. Now from my point of view, he is not waiting for the bathroom as he is on his phone. As I go to open the bathroom door, he reaches across the hall and blocks me from trying. Says he's next. I apologize and try to make some small talk. He is not having it and I'm noticing a pattern of unnecessary aggressiveness. Following the bathroom incidents is what I would call the finest draw. A bunch of us are in the kitchen, drinking, talking and having a good time. This dude comes in out of nowhere and punches me in the nuts. I go down like a ton of bricks and my friends I came with are taken back. I guess fortunately one of his friends then punches him in the nuts. Had that guy not done that, I think there may have been a fight. I collect myself and my friend is like, "That dude hates you." At this point it is clear, I need to do something. As I'm leaving I see a remote for his basement TV. Then it hits me. I'm going to steal every remote I can find. Spoiler alert, I did just that. I took the cable box remotes, TV remotes, DVD and Blu-ray remotes, surround sound, anything I could find. I was wearing a suit for my custom and there were plenty of pockets in this jacket. I signal to my friends that it's time to go and we leave. As we are walking out, I notice he lives right next to an alley entrance. What better way to punctuate this than by smashing every remote I had taken right next to his house. I smashed every single one of them and made sure when he found them they would not work. I'd say I succeeded. Thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like, comment and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps in the algorithm. I hope you have a great day, stay safe, bye bye.